The Exorcist had to be carefully lit. The lighting had to be extremely controlled. And except for the exteriors, the interiors had to have mood, and the mood had to be totally created because it was all on a sound stage, which is, at the one hand, an advantage for a cinematographer in that he gets to start from scratch. He doesn't have to live with the lighting that exists in a real location. But on the other hand, it's more time-consuming and much more of a challenge. Ultimately, I thought that working in those two modes, from the documentary realism of the French Connection to the much more controlled and atmospheric lighting of The Exorcist, that Owen had done a really brilliant job. The Exorcist took us a lot longer to film. The French Connection was filmed in 40 days. The Exorcist took over 6 months, working every day, over 100 days of filming. The experience of both films was completely different and brought about a lot of tensions between us, because Owen worked very quickly on The French Connection and very slowly on The Exorcist. He worked slowly and methodically and properly, and of course, probably as important as anything else toward the impact of the film is the mood created and enhanced by Owen's lighting.
No, not really, I suppose. But I have made a prudent judgment that it meets the conditions set down in the ritual.
You would want to do the exorcism yourself?
Yes.
Might be best to have a man of experience, maybe someone who spent time in foreign missions.
The location of the scenes between the two priests who are discussing exorcism, between Father Karras and his superior, and then again between Father Birmingham here, who's again talking to the president of the university. Both of these scenes were filmed in the president's office at Georgetown. That was the office and conference room of Father Healy, who was at that time president of Georgetown. This is not a set, that's actually his office. Georgetown is where the files of the actual case are kept, and Father Healy was the man who gave me access to those files before I started the film, and he gave us permission to film at Georgetown.
Be all right. He's still running around digging up tombs. Besides, he's had experience.
I didn't know that.
10, 12 years ago, I think, in Africa. The exorcism supposedly lasted months. I heard it damn near killed him.
Father?
Merrin doesn't need to open the telegram. He knows what it says. He knows that this is the call that he's been waiting for, his realization that he's now being summoned to an ultimate confrontation with the demon. And while that's going on, the demon, in her own mind's eye, is beginning to become conscious that Merrin is coming. This is the shot that became the ad for the film. I got the visual idea for this shot from a painting that I saw in the Metropolitan Museum of New York. It's by René Magritte, and the painting is called Empire of Light. This is not a direct copy of that painting, but it is. It does give the suggestion of a supernatural kind of thing that's occurring on a totally realistic street.
Father?
Father Karras.
It's an honor to meet you, Father.
The exorcism scene, of course, was one of the last things filmed in New York, and Von Sydow was there for all of that, and I think it wound up being, he might have been there for 6 weeks, more or less, to just do the one final, 12, 13-minute sequence. It did go over schedule. Yes, it did go over schedule.
Why? Especially important is the warning to avoid conversations with the demon. We may ask what is relevant, but anything beyond that is dangerous. He's a liar. The demon is a liar. He will like to confuse us.
The instructions that Marin
You
gives to
also
Karras here about
mix
don't pay
lies with the
attention
truth.
to the demon, don't listen to the
attack us.
demon. The demon is a liar. He will lie to
Attack us
confuse us,
psychologically.
but he will also mix lies with the
Powerful.
truth.
So don't listen.
All of that is part of
Do not
the advice that an older priest would give to a younger priest who's assisting him before the rite of exorcism is
So far, I'd say there
performed.
seem to be three. She's convinced that
There is
she's...
only one.
Of course, the battle of good and evil is fought on a daily basis, on a minute-by-minute, hour-by-hour basis, everywhere in the world at some point. And I think the genius of Bill Blatty's creation is that he took this battle of good and evil and he put it in the second-floor bedroom of a real little girl who is possessed by a demon. This is not a huge battlefield. This is not armies of tens of thousands of people killing one another and attacking one another. These are two men and a little girl, and a ritual that's thousands of years old, and the setting is one that we all recognize, that we all know of a child's bedroom where the battle of good and evil is being played out. By this point, of course, everyone in the audience and everyone in this film, every character in the story is convinced that this is demonic possession, and the only possible antidote to it is exorcism. And it's at this point that the actual Roman ritual of exorcism, which still exists in the Roman ritual, becomes the dialogue. The exorcism is the rite of exorcism that is in the Roman ritual to this day. Not often performed anymore in the United States, although it is performed in many other countries. But we go from Blatty's fictional screenplay right into the factual Roman ritual for this sequence.
As it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be.
Now, this is the kind of effect where you see the breath showing in the room that would be done today on a computer. It would be done as a computer-generated optical and be just as effective as what you see in our film. But computer-generated opticals didn't exist at the time we filmed The Exorcist. So in order to get that breath in the room, we had to literally refrigerate the room to below freezing every day that we needed these kind of shots. It's also very difficult just to photograph breath, especially in a dark room, but even in a light room. And unless you backlight or sidelight or underlight the breath, it won't show up on film. If you just frontlight people's faces, that breath would not show in the room. Each person's breath needed its own little sidelight in order to be filmed.
And to redeem through your Son, who lives and reigns with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, God, forever and ever.
I never use storyboards, really. I simply describe to everyone on the crew what I hope to accomplish. We then experiment with it using a lot of trial and error before we arrive at something that I think works, and then we film it. But I don't draw it out so much as I have to conceive of it in my mind's eye. I have to think of all these cuts, how they'll work together, and then I go out and film them, usually in sequence, within a sequence. In other words, the entire film was not shot in sequence from beginning to end, but inside of each particular scene, everything in that scene is generally shot from beginning to end so that you're not straying too far from continuity.
See the cross of the Lord. Begone, you hostile power.
The exorcism that was sent to me from the Vatican was an authentic case of possession. And what you hear on this rather poorly recorded tape is a sound of agony that is so profound and so disturbing that it's unimaginable that it could have been acted or faked. And it moved me so much that I mixed it into the soundtrack when the demon is in agony. Here, the idea of reality is almost completely abandoned. I say almost completely. From time to time, you see a cut of the little girl suffering as a little girl and in pain. And at other times, it's the demon in pain. And at the other times, it's the demon laughing at this situation and mocking Marin and Karis. But the little supernatural effects in here of the ceiling cracking, the plasma bottle crashing to the floor, the door splitting, all of these effects were, of course, written and planned. And all of them are things that have taken place in the reportage that has accompanied all of the modern-day exorcisms. All of this carnage has been witnessed by someone who attended one of these exorcisms.
Who lives and reigns with the Father and the Holy Spirit.
I had a technical advisor, Reverend John Nicola, who had written the definitive Catholic text on exorcism. And he was on the set with me every day that we filmed this sequence, giving me the courage to do it with a straight face, and to not think I was going over the top with any of it.
I command you, by the judge of the living and the dead, to depart from the servant of God.
I really believe that the technical aspects of this are not only secondary, but unimportant. How any of this was done is not as important as what is being done. And so I have a great reluctance to discuss the way in which we were able to achieve these shots, because it's not about how we achieved the shots, it's about what we're trying to achieve. This idea of the priests repeating the phrase, "The power of Christ compels you," they say it over and over again several times. That was something that I heard on a tape that was sent to me by a priest from the Vatican in Rome at an actual exorcism that was being performed in Latin. And the phrase was repeated over and over again. And I asked Father Nicola, why was that phrase being repeated? And he said, because it seemed to be effective in quelling the demon. And so the priests repeated the phrase over and over again. It seemed to be having its desired effect. So I put that in. That was not in the original screenplay. I also used the sound of the demonically possessed boy on that Vatican tape, mixed in from time to time with Mercedes McCambridge voice.
God the Son commands you. God the Holy Spirit commands you. The mystery of the cross commands you. The blood of the martyrs commands you.
The shot of the demon Pazuzu appearing here in Reagan's room is something I added to the mix. We had just recently gotten this statue returned from Iraq, and when it came back, I looked at it. I had it in the studio, and I kept looking at it, and I thought it might be interesting to put this figure into the room in this way at this time. And I shot it very experimentally without really knowing how to get into it or get out of it. And at one point, I was going to take it out. I thought, this is way over the top. Blatty looked at it, and he said, no, that's good. Let's keep that. That really works.
And the world by fire.